1000-Year Blood War is back! On July 8th, the first episode of Bleach 1000-Year Blood War Part 2 dropped, and it did so with the force of an atom bomb. Episode 1 was so riveting and nail-biting that Bleach and anime fans like myself just can't wait for the rest of the episodes to air. However, for some of you who are yet to watch Part 1 of the 1000-Year Blood War, the new season may leave you a little confused. Your hearts are burning with important questions like, why does Ichigo have 2 blades now? Why is Uryu wearing a Sternritter outfit? Does that mean he's one of the bad guys now? And who is the weird Quincy guy with the long mustache? And why does he look so much like Old Man Zengetsu? If you're one of the fans asking these questions, then wonder no more, because today we're going to be taking a deep dive into each episode of 1000-Year Blood War Part 1 so that you're all caught up heading into Part 2. A few things to bear in mind before we proceed. This video is going to contain spoilers for those who haven't watched Part 1 already. So if you are one of the few anime fans out there who still haven't watched the first part and don't want it to be spoiled for you, then pause this video and go stream it, cause trust me, it's incredible.
Nice.
Also, if you're a complete novice to the awesome world of Bleach, then click the link to our awesome video on 5 reasons you shouldn't sleep on Bleach. It's a great watch, if I do say so myself. So with all that out of the way, let's get started. Episode 1. The first episode begins with 2 Shinigami assigned as the new guardians of Karakura Town being attacked during their patrol by, yup, you guessed it, Hollows. They almost got killed. Luckily, Ichigo and the gang swoop in the last minute to save the day. A few days later, another threat comes to Karakura Town in the form of Asquiaro Ebern, an Arrancar who's a member of the Vandenreich, which is an army of the Quincy's. After failing to seal Ichigo's Bankai, Ichigo defeats him and he escapes. At the same time, Chojuro Sasakibe, Captain Commander Yamamoto's lieutenant, is attacked and killed by other members of the Vandenreich. Finally, Asquiaro returns to Silburn, the Quincy main base, and reports to Yuavak, the Quincy king. Yuavak promptly kills him, ending the episode. Episode 2. In Episode 2, Nell, the little Arrancar girl who's actually an incredibly cute baddie, please don't ask me to explain this, visits Ichigo in Karakura Town. She and her 2 friends, Pesh and Dondochaka, inform Ichigo that the Vandenreich have taken over Hueco Mundo and are forcefully conscripting Arrancars into their ranks. Ichigo and the others quickly go to Hueco Mundo where they run into Kilgay Opie, the hunting captain of the 1st Yagdharme, which is basically the Vandenreich Special Invasion Force. After Ichigo watches Kilgay make short work of the locals, including the Tres Bestias, he decides to free the captured Arrancars. Episode 3. Without missing a beat, Episode 3 kicks off with Ichigo clashing swords with Kilgay. Tres Bestias gets back in the fight by summoning their spirit monster Aeon, which was a pretty bad idea. I'll tell you why in a bit. Meanwhile, while everyone was kung fu fighting, Uryu Ishida finds out the truth about the Shinigami extermination of the Quincy's centuries ago. It is also revealed that Yamamoto, the captain commander, had a chance to kill Yuhawak back then, but failed to do so, which is probably why he's back to kill all the Shinigami. Back to the fight. Kilgay absorbs the Ryatsu in the area, as well as Aeon, making him even more powerful. Ichigo activates his Bankai, and while that's going on, the Quincy invasion of Soul Society officially begins with the first blood being drawn from the lieutenant of Squad 3, Kira. Episode 4. In Episode 4, we witness all-out war in Soul Society as the Quincy Sternritters take on Gote 13 captains and vice captains. After their battle has raged on for a while, the 2nd Division captain, Soifan, as well as the 6th, 7th, and 10th Division captains release their Bankais, only to have them immediately stolen by their opponent using absorbing medallions. It is then revealed to the captains that the Quincy's trump card is the ability to absorb Bankai. Meanwhile, back in Hueco Mundo, Kilgay tries to absorb Ichigo's Bankai, but is unable to do so for reasons that will be explained later. Urahara then opens a portal that Ichigo can use to get to the Soul Society and join the fight. But Kilgay uses his Sternritter power, called the Jail, to trap Ichigo and Garganta. Episode 5. Episode 5 swings into gear with Ichigo still trapped in jail. Kilge is killed by an unknown person, Byakuya steps in to fight the Sternritter Note, but the Quincy uses his reishi ability called Thorns to strike fear into Byakuya's heart and then absolutely destroys him using his own Bankai. Zaraki confronts Yuhavak and his right-hand man, Ugram Hashvalth. Sternritter O, Driscoll Bercy, mouths off to Yamamoto that he was the one who killed Sasakibe, his lieutenant, and stole his Bankai. He then attempts to use the Bankai against Yamamoto, which you can already tell was a pretty dumb move. After he turns Driscoll into burnt toast, he rescues Zaraki and then faces off against Yuhavak, the Quincy King. Episode 6. Episode 6 kicks off with Yamamoto's fiery fight with Yuhavak. After a bit of sparring, Yamamoto decides he's done playing and activates his Bankai Zanka no Tachi. Then he absolutely goes beast mode, releasing fire and heat so powerful it almost eviscerated the entire Soul Society. Yamamoto's gloating soon turned to confusion as he realized that the person he had defeated wasn't actually Yuhavak, but a fake replica who identifies as Sternritter Y, yourself, Royd Lloyd. The real Yuhavak had actually gone to the underground prison to offer Aizen a chance to join him. Aizen, not wanting to be bossed around by Yuhavak, had turned down this proposition. Yamamoto then attempts to use his powerful Bankai against Yuhavak, only for it to be promptly stolen by him. Then he kills Yamamoto by slicing him in half, literally. Episode 7. Episode 7 starts with a flashback detailing how Yamamoto and the 13 Court Guard had absolutely crushed the Quincy's centuries ago. Of course, back then the 13 Court Guard squad were bloodthirsty brutes, and each group had its own goals. Yamamoto and his lieutenant Sasakibe defeated Yuhavak, and after, Yamamoto unified the Gotei 13, and they adopted a more peaceful philosophy. Back to the present day, Yuhavak eviscerates what is left of Yamamoto just as Ichigo breaks out of jail and arrives in Soul Society. He finds the place in complete chaos, and then locates Kukichi Byakuya, who pleads with him to save Soul Society with his dying breath. Ichigo then straight up attacks Yuhavak, but, as expected, gets defeated. Yuhavak attempts to stab Ichigo, but the shadow portals appear, signifying the end of the invasion. Yuhavak notes that only a Quincy could have broken out of Kilge's jail, and that Ichigo probably doesn't realize that his mother is a Quincy and that he himself is part Quincy. As he leaves, Ichigo launches one final attack on him, only for his Zanpakuto, Zangetsu, to be shattered by Yungram. Episode 8. After the Quincy invasion, the Soul Reapers are left to lick their wounds as Ichigo, Renji, Rukia, and others are grievously injured, while Byakuya and Zaraki are in critical states. Mayuri informs Ichigo that since his Zanpakuto was destroyed while in Bankai state, it cannot be repaired. The rest of the captains mourn Yamamoto, but then they receive a visit from the Elite Squad Zero former Gotei 13 captains who now guard the Soul King at the Royal Palace. Ichigo then gets a call from Urahara, Inoue, and Chad, assuring him of their safety. It also revealed that Kilge was actually defeated by Grimmjow, the former Espada whom you remember from the Arrancar arc. Ichigo, Rukia, Chad, and the others are then rocketed off to Royal Palace by Kukaku. She is joined by her brother, Ganju, as well as Kugo Ginjo, and other Fullbringers who were killed with a Zanpakuto during the Fullbringer arc. At the Royal Palace, Ichigo, Rukia, Renji, and Byakuya are being healed by Tenjiro Kirinji, one of Squad Zero members, and the one who taught Unohana healing techniques. At the end of the episode, we glimpse the Soul King's awakening. Episode 9. After getting healed up, Ichigo and Renji proceed to Kiryu Hikifune's palace, where they stuff their faces full of tantalizing, spirit pressure energizing food. Then they make their way to Uetsu Nimaya, the creator of all Zanpakutos. Meanwhile, down in Soul Society, Captain Kyoraku is made the new head captain. He instates Nanao Ise as his assistant and instructs that Zaraki be taught the Zanjutsu, a powerful fighting technique by Captain Unohana. Unohana is revealed to have been a powerful criminal in Soul Society history. She is also the first Kenpachi, her full name being Yachiru Unohana, and the founder of the 11th Division. Unohana and Zaraki then fight in the infinite underground prison called Muken. Zaraki recalls how he used to admire Unohana from their first meeting when he scarred her chest. The two cross blades so that Zaraki can be pushed hard enough to unlock his hidden abilities. Episode 10. The next episode starts with a flashback of when Unohana first met Zaraki. As a child, he had inflicted an injury on her, then subconsciously made himself weaker so as to never become bored of fighting. The flashback ends, and after a protracted fight in which Unohana kills and heals Zaraki countless times, Unohana releases her powerful Bankai Minazuki. Zaraki becomes strong enough and powers through Unohana's Bankai to kill her. As a result, he finally hears the voice of his Zanpakuto, Nozarashi, and the two forge a bond. Meanwhile, Renji and Ichigo are thrown down a pit filled with Asauchis, the base form of Zanpakutos. They are tasked with fighting off the countless Asauchi. Renji succeeds while Ichigo fails the test. Ichigo is then returned to the human world in order to discover his roots and, by so doing, retrieve his Zanpakuto. Episode 11. In episode 11, Ichigo visits Ikumi Unagiya's bike shop but is immediately whisked away by his dad Ishin, leaving his badge behind. Ishin then explains to Ichigo their family history, and that his mom, Masaki Kurosaki, was a Quincy. As it turns out, 20 years ago, there were a series of mysterious Soul Reaper deaths in Naraki City. Ishin, then the captain of Division 10, came to the city to investigate, only to run into a powerful hollow with jet black armor named White. It got its name from the fact it was made of several dead Soul Reaper souls. Meanwhile, at the home of Ryukin Ishida, who's Uryu's dad, and Masaki Kurosaki, an ex-Quincy noble, sense the spirit pressure being released by the powerful hollow. Despite the other Quincy's trying to stop her, she goes off to help Ishin to fight the hollow. Ishin attempts to use his Bankai, but is injured by Aizen, Gin, and Tosen, who secretly observe the altercation. As it turns out, Aizen was the one who engineered the hollow. However, before the hollow can kill Ishin, Masaki steps in. She saves Ishin's life, but is bitten by the hollow in the process. She then heals Ishin's wounds and introduces herself as Quincy. Meanwhile, in the present day, Yugrim, though Quincy's second in command, meets with Uryu Ishida. Episode 12. The next episode continues right from Ishin's flashback. Ishin returns to Soul Society and reports the incident to Yamamoto, as well as the other captains, although he leaves out the part about being saved by a Quincy. A few days pass, and both Ishin and Masaki find themselves thinking about each other. Unbeknownst to Masaki, however, her injury from the hollow had corrupted her soul, and her life was in danger. While being scolded by Ryukin's mother for aiding a Soul Reaper, she succumbs to White's corruption, and a hollow hole appears in her chest. Ryukin takes her to look for help and runs into Ishin and Kisuke Urahara. Urahara offers to help, then he explains what is happening to Masaki and that she would die if a Soul Reaper's power is not used to combat the hollow in her soul for the rest of her life. Ishin volunteered, and Urahara provided him with a special created Gigai that can completely contain a Soul Reaper's soul and turn them into a human. Afterward, Ishin and Masaki fall in love and settle together. While Ryukin marries his maid, Katagiri, who he was actually in love with, Ishin further explained that Masaki died not because of the Grand Fissure, but because 9 years ago, Yu Havok had stripped impure Quincy's of their power and used it to regain his. This event also resulted in the death of Uryu's mom. Ichigo retrieves his badge, and Ryukin finds evidence that Ishida met with the Sternritters. Episode 13. Ichigo returns to the palace with the aid of one of Nimiya's Zanpakuto bodyguards. He is immediately dropped back into the hole with countless Asauchi, but this time the Asauchi kneels to him. He picks a white Asauchi, which is the hollow White inside him. Back at Soul Society, the captains and lieutenants begin training for the next Quincy invasion. Captain Toshiro returns to the Soul Reaper training grounds to hone his sword-wielding skills. 9th Division Captain Kensei Mugurama begins training his Lieutenant Hisagi in order to awaken his Bankai. Kuratsuchi and Lieutenant Nimu Kuratsuchi locked themselves in the lab for more than 24 hours and were in the process of creating something. Captain Komamura returns to the Wolfman clan and tries to convince the clan elder, who's actually his great-grandfather, to teach him their clan's secret technique, while Captain Soifan trains in the mountains. With the aid of his bodyguards, Nimiya prepares the forge and he begins rebuilding Ichigo's Zanpakuto. He also informs Ichigo that Old Man Zangetsu is not his real Zanpakuto, and that he would have to say goodbye to him. Ichigo speaks to Old Man Zangetsu, who confirms that he is indeed not Zangetsu, but actually Ichigo's Quincy powers taking the form of Yhwach from 1,000 years ago. He added that he tried to suppress Ichigo's Soul Reaper powers to prevent him from becoming a Soul Reaper, but is proud of Ichigo's strength. Old Man Zangetsu says farewell and relinquishes his hold on Ichigo's powers, allowing him to access his true Zanpakuto, the dual-bladed Zangetsu. Meanwhile, in Silburn, Yhwach meets with Uryu, who is now a Sternritter. So, there you have it, folks. That was a complete recap of each episode of Part 1. Now you are ready to delve straight into Season 2. I hope you enjoyed this video. Let me know if I missed anything from the episodes in the comments. Remember to like and subscribe if you haven't. Thanks again,